This is the group project for Fire 103 at Miramar College going over a multi-story medical building fire in North Carolina. The group members are Ryan Pascal and Weston Garrett. On July 28, 2011, a 37-year-old career captain died and 9 firefighters were injured in a 6-story medical building fire. Engine 2 reported a working fire with heavy smoke and fire showing on the top floor rear of structure and requested a second alarm. 2 of Rescue 3's members were getting low on air and the crew moved to the stairwell to exit the building. 2 of the members exited the stairwell, but the captain went down the hallway and 2 firefighters followed him. The low air alarms of the victim and 2 firefighters were sounding when they reached the hallway that was connected to the fire rooms. One of the firefighters grabbed the victim, who was acting confused, and started back to the stairwell. The other firefighter got separated in heavy smoke, went towards the fire room, and made it to a window where the platform of ladder 1 was located just as he ran out of air. The victim ran out of air and told his partner they needed buddy breath. The firefighter crawled down a hallway trying to open several doors unsuccessfully until he found a door he could open to the south stairwell. The firefighter grabbed the victim and pulled him to the south stairwell where he collapsed and fell down the flight of stairs. The victim and the firefighter were eventually located in the south stairwell by another officer who had exited the north stairwell and heard the victim's pass alarm sounding. Medic units transported the victim and the firefighter to the hospital. Per the ATF report, the origin of the fire was in a records office on the 5th floor at the AB corner. The cause of the fire was arson via a flammable liquid. Some of the key recommendations include making sure that the existing standard operating procedures for high-rise firefighting operations are reviewed, implemented, and enforced, verify that the incident commander utilizes division group supervisors for effective tactical level management, establish that firefighters are properly trained in air management, and ensure that firefighters are properly trained in Mayday standard operating procedures and survival techniques. The state of North Carolina has specific requirements and recommendations to become either a volunteer or a career firefighter. First, you must be 18 years old with a high school diploma or GED and have a valid Class C or better North Carolina driver's license. Second, all firefighters must complete training equivalent to NFPA 1001, standard for firefighter professional qualifications, Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2. Third, a North Carolina Level 1 firefighter must be certified to hazmat awareness and hazmat operations. The fire department has a training classroom at headquarters and a training staff which are led by the Chief of Training. The training division is responsible for all aspects of training and education for the department, including recruit training, in-service training for firefighters and officers, and professional standards testing and certification. The fire department dispatched the automatic alarm 2 engines, 1 truck, and a squad. Upon notification of a working fire, an additional engine, rescue company, division chief, battalion chief, safety officer, and a fire marshal were dispatched. Engine 2 requested a second alarm, but due to multiple radio transmissions on the dispatch channel, it was missed by the communication center. The communication center never acknowledged the request and only dispatched the working fire units. Another alarm was not dispatched for 25 minutes. The third alarm requested was actually the second alarm dispatched. The incident involved an approximately 122,862 square foot, 6-story commercial structure and was built in 1982. The commercial structure consisted of 5 upper floors, a ground floor, and a basement. The interior construction was drywall over metal studs, comprising numerous internal rooms and long hallways. The floors were poured concrete that were covered primarily with carpeting, but some areas were tiled. A void space approximately 3 feet high was located between the drop ceiling and the steel decking of the floor above. The void spaces contained heating and cooling ductwork and other utilities. The weather was clear with an approximate temperature of 87 degrees Fahrenheit. The relative humidity was 46% and the wind was variable at 4 to 6 miles per hour. The weather may have had an impact on the incident. On July 28, 2011, at 12:28 hours, dispatch sent E1, E2, T1, and SQ1 to an automatic fire alarm at a multi-story medical building. The E2 crew used the elevator without putting it in fireman mode and took it to the 4th floor. The E2 crew went on air and reported heavy smoke and intense heat as they located the standpipe connection at the 5th floor landing on the north stairwell. They began to connect the high-rise pack. DC-4 arrived on scene and assumed command of the incident. At 13:11 hours, E6 got water on the fire for the first time. R3 was back on E2's original hose line but reported to command that there was no water and the IC ordered them out. The victim proceeded down the hallway instead of exiting down the stairwell. Another R3 firefighter and an E1 firefighter noticed the victim headed down the hallway, so they followed after the victim. All three firefighters' SCBA low air alarms were going off. The two firefighters grabbed the victim and headed back into the side A hallway. The victim was following the R3 firefighter, but the E1 firefighter got separated from them in the hallway due to the heavy smoke. The E1 firefighter realized he was extremely low on air and thought about calling a mayday. He took about 10 steps and ran into the E6 firefighter on the hose line from T1. Shortly after, the E1 firefighter followed the E6 hose line to the window and got on the ladder just as he ran out of air. The R3 firefighter told the victim to call a mayday, and the victim told his partner to activate his pass. The victim activated his pass, but inadvertently the R3 firefighter turned his off. At 13:41 hours, the E8 captain exited the north stairwell and located the victim and R3 firefighter in the south stairwell when he heard the victim's pass alarm sounding. Medic units transported the victim and R3 firefighter to the hospital, where the victim was pronounced dead and the firefighter was treated. Some contributing factors were arson, lack of an automatic fire suppression system, inadequate strategy and tactics, and task saturation of the incident commander. The medical examiner's report states that the victim's cause of death was smoke and fume inhalation in an oxygen-depleted environment. Recommendation number 15 states that states and municipalities should adopt and enforce regulations for automatic fire sprinkler protection in new buildings and renovated structures. Fire development beyond the incipient stage is one of the greatest hazards that firefighters are exposed to. This exposure and risk to firefighters can be dramatically reduced when fires are controlled or extinguished by automatic sprinkler systems. NFPA statistics show that most fires in sprinklered buildings are controlled by the activation of one or two sprinkler heads prior to fire department arrival. The presence of automatic fire sprinklers also reduces exposure risk to firefighters in rescue situations by allowing the safe egress of building occupants before the fire department arrives on scene. Finally, by controlling fire development, the exposure to hazards such as building collapse and overhaul operations are greatly reduced, if not eliminated. These are the sources that we used, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you.